अज्ञानकलुषं जीवम् ज्ञानाभ्यासात्विनिर्मलम् कृत्वा ज्ञानं स्वयं नश्येत् जलं कटकरेणुवत्. Constant practice of knowledge purifies the self, which is stained by ignorance, and then, upon purifying the self, the knowledge disappears itself. Like the powder of the Kataka-nut settles down after it has cleansed the muddy water. In previous shlokas, we learned that it is only knowledge that can remove the ignorance, and the ever-present Atman is untainted by ignorance, just as the clouds covering the sun. In this shloka, Shankara is again explaining the reality of the non-dual Brahman by explaining about the nature of knowledge that removes the ignorance. A student may doubt that after disappearance of ignorance, the knowledge may remain, and hence the duality would always remain, thus leading to the wrong conclusion that removal of ignorance cannot lead to the non-dual blissful Atman. Let us analyze the ignorance and the knowledge to understand Shankara's answer to this doubt. Ignorance is nothing but forgetting one's own nature of self. It can neither be termed as real or unreal, and can never be proven. Knowledge can be termed as that which is got from the scriptures, which is paroksha jnana, and that from self-experience, which is aparoksha jnana. These are again but modifications of mind or experiences only, and hence limited only to the realm of the empirical world. Thus, this knowledge can also be called as illusory only. It is this knowledge that negates the illusory ignorance. But the self-knowledge, which is consciousness, the self, which is ever present, it is like the sun behind the clouds, and hence it is unaffected by this illusory knowledge. The ignorance can never be removed, as it is not that which is newly acquired to be removed. Also, that which is removed cannot be got again, can be got again. Possibility is there. We can never remove anything that is neither present nor absent. Ignorance, as we analyzed, is something that is neither real nor unreal. It is just an apparent illusion. Just like the illusion of the snake in the rope or the water in the desert. Like the snake in the rope that can never be removed as it never existed in its first place. Ignorance, similarly, is not removed but only negated. Kataka-nut. There is this powder. You may refer to Google to know more about the Kataka-nut qualities or the picture. The powder of the Kataka-nut is added to muddy water to purify the water to be used for cooking, etc. The powder has this special quality to precipitate the fine muddy particles in the water and make them settle to the bottom of the bucket. The clear water left behind at top of the bucket is decanted for drinking. Finally, the dirty mixture of mud and the powder at the bottom of the bucket is discarded, having done its job of clearing the rest of the water. The simile applies in the following manner in context of the knowledge of self. The water is the self. The adulteration with mud is the impurities embedded in jiva due to our life fostered by ignorance which is within us. The ignorance referred to here is the first and the subtlest ignorance of the real truth that we are divine. This ignorance gives birth to our identity as a human being with BMI. The remedy for a disease depends on the cause of the disease. Hence, here the disease is ignorance. So the cure for this has to be knowledge. The cure for avidya has to be vidya. So, the Kataka-nut in this example is knowledge of Brahman to remove the dirt of our ignorance, which is covering the clean water, which is the self. Thus, only the state of Aham Brahmasmi can drive away our mistaken notion of I am this body, I am this jiva. There are two ways of gaining knowledge: through direct experience and from external sources. The knowledge gained from direct experience is complete, self-evident, and fulfilling. The knowledge gained from external sources is incomplete, fragmented, requires evidence for its validity, and is not satisfying forever. Direct knowledge alone should be considered valid. Direct experience is the highest of all ways of gaining knowledge. Generally, we keep gathering knowledge from the external world in the form of information. The world around us is ever-present teacher. Our mother, then our father, then our sibling, all of them, the children with whom we play, teachers at school, the writers of books, etc. All of them teach us worldly knowledge, external knowledge. No matter what we have learned, we have not learned a single thing independently. Still, ironically, we call ourselves learned. It is shocking to realize that whatever we have learned so far is not ours. That is why it is not satisfying. Even if we have mastered an entire library, still it does not satisfy us. However, by experimenting with the knowledge that we have acquired from outside, we can move a small step towards higher knowledge. By gaining worldly knowledge, we develop the skills that are useful for gathering means and resources. A resourceful person can then have a better chance to direct his energies inward to explore the subtler and more glorious dimensions in life. The knowledge gained in the form of information serves a purpose as long as it inspires us to gain direct experience, or in other words, as long as we really have the mumukshatva, have the conviction and the craving to gain direct experience. Without that, this knowledge is all gained from external sources, and they never leave us complete and wholesome. Direct experience is the final test of the validity of knowledge. When you know truth directly, you do not need to ask anyone about it. You don't have to seek information about it from books. So, the actual culmination of knowledge happens when the knowledge gathered is absorbed so intensely that it transforms into inner subjective experience of the truth, the only truth, that one is divine self. Once such a jnani, after having discovered himself to be that self, he abides in that self, then the so-called knowledge, or say the impression about one's knowledge, must leave him once for all. Like the Kataka-nut dissolves in the water after clearing all the impurities so that the water is rendered pure and clean. Let us get more clarity on this. In worldly knowledge, external knowledge, at a very subtler level, at a grosser level, this may not be appreciated, but at a very subtler level, for all external knowledge, the fundamental basis is our ego. This ego never leaves us. It remains with us, giving us the notion that we have learned the best and we are better than the best in the world. We are always looking at the world outside. The knowledge we gain is knowledge of objects, and objects are outside us. Any knowledge of anything is outside us. Each such knowledge, or volumes of such knowledge, satisfies our ego in a very subtler way. We don't even realize this fact. How this can be validated? This follows this is aligned or connected with an earlier verse which gave us the Hridaya Granthi Avidya Kama Karma. Any effort to gain any worldly knowledge and any action taken up to gain external knowledge is based on our basic ignorance that we are Jiva with a body, mind, and intellect. This requires a lot of inward thought to appreciate this very subtler fact. Whereas, totally contrary to this, self-knowledge has nothing to do with anything outside us or anything apart from us. It is we ourselves, our own true self. Worldly knowledge has the background of our ego, whereas self-knowledge begins with our efforts to annihilate that very ego. And when the knowledge culminates in self-realization, the knowledge hitherto as knowledge at intellectual level paves way for knowledge or jnana as our very existence, pure awareness existence. This paving way is given with the help, explained with the help of the Kataka-nut example in this verse. Thus, after aiding us or after helping us to discover our identity, which has always been with us, false identity, apparent identity, illusory identity, the knowledge per se frustrates and leaves us. It is the last stage in sadhana, the culmination of all our sadhana, where having meditated enough and intensely on Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, having learned Shrutis from our Guru and getting into intense nididhyasana on the same, the meditator actually attains the intuitive experience of Brahman, which is Brahma Anubhuti. And thereafter, there is no object of meditation in Brahman. There is no one who is meditating on Brahman. There is no meditation either. Brahman as knowledge is dissolved, or we can say merged within the Brahman that we have discovered ourselves to be as our essence. Ajñānakaluṣaṃ jīvaṃ. We are summing up. Defied by the ignorance of illusory ideas of I, mine, birth, death, happiness, unhappiness. Jiva through ignorance seems to be embodied soul. jñānābhyāsādvinirmalam is purified by the constant practice of knowledge. Long, uninterrupted practice of nididhyasana on the four Mahavakyas, Prajñānam Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi, Tat Tvamasi, Ayamatma Brahma. Intense nididhyasana on the four Mahavakyas, or we can say the essence of Shruti. Through this, what happens? Kṛtvā jñānaṃ svayaṃ naśyejjalaṃ, and upon the dawn of knowledge, Ignorance is destroyed by itself. Knowledge here is the knowledge of self. It makes a man realize that he is not the doer or the experiencer, but he is the all-pervading self. Existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, Sat Chit Ananda. Exactly as what Jalam Katakareṇuvat, as the Kataka-nut powder settles down, carrying with it with the external particles in the water. The revelation, however, is that no, after all these things, one revelation, beautiful revelation is that when one attains liberation, any knowledge, while functioning at a worldly level, depending upon his leftover dharma duties, such knowledge at the level of the world is not discarded by the one who abides in self. It does not discard any other knowledge, looking upon it, looking down upon it as opposite to self-knowledge. He does not, for a minute, come down from the state of abidance in self. Therefore, he cannot differentiate between jnana as his existence and knowledge in the world. Here at this stage, only and only at this stage, the learning from Shrutis that everything in the creation, including all knowledge, is illumined by the pure awareness jnana, which is Brahman, or at the Jiva level, it is Atman. This illumination, this truth revealed by Shruti, this is lived. The sage lives truly to this illumining, where his pure existence awareness illumines all the external knowledge that he has to have to perform his duties until the time comes for him to discard his body. So at this stage, there is no difference between science and spirituality. There is no difference between worldly knowledge and atmic knowledge, Atma Bodha, knowledge of self. So the apparent diversity or the apparent difference is now rent asunder at this ultimate stage, where there is neither illusory apparent ignorance that he is the body, he has transcended that, and nor is the awareness that I am pure self, he has transcended that also. Beyond Ajñāna, beyond Jnāna. Beyond Vijnāna, beyond Prajnāna. Ribhu Gita was affirming this last revelation, says, all ignorance and illusion, all objects inert and living, all beings and non-beings, all the five elements, all the diverse worlds, all bodies and the lives that arise in them, not being apart from Brahman, they are all Brahman only. Existence alone is For even non-existence acquires meaning only in existence. All objective knowledge, all forms, all visible objects, all things heard, all questions and answers, all illusions not being apart from the self are all verily Brahman only. The journey, spiritual journey, starts with an affirmation that all is illusory in this world, Jagat Mithya, and only self is truth, Brahma Satyam. And we started with all is illusory, the final state is all is consciousness. Jiva Brahmaiva Para. Beautiful, is it not? Even when we visualize that, when we once reach that state, how the life would be. Hari Om Tat Sat.